I've been watching Attack on Titan for the first time and I just finished season 2, so let's talk about it. And if this is your first time joining me on this journey, then this video is basically going to be me just checking in, giving my review and thoughts on season 2, and also just my wildest theories about what's going on and all that jazz. And if you didn't see my season 1 video, then you'll know that out of an abundance of caution for spoilers, there's not going to be like too many different backgrounds. I think I will throw in a couple here just to spice things up that I carefully curated, as opposed to, entering the wild realms of Google to get spoiled. But also, it's just going to be really disorganized because this is just me, stream of consciousness about my thoughts on this show. It is my first watch through, so, I don't have like the most thorough analysis. I'm not taking notes. I'm just purely like enjoying the show for what it is for my first time here. So apologies for the disorganization. Also, I will not be reading comments on this video, at least not until I fully finish the series. And when I do plan on coming back to read the comments because I want to hear what you guys say. But I've already been told by a few people that have been reading the comments, instead of me, that there are people trying to spoil me. So again, just out of an abundance of caution, I'm not going to be reading them until much later. But with that out of the way, let's talk about season 2. All right, so first and foremost, review of season 2. I really enjoyed it, and it feels like I enjoyed it even more than season 1, but I'm not ready to say that like I think season 2 is necessarily better than season 1, because I think it's more a product of my investment in this world more so than these 12 episodes being more exceptional than the first 24, if that makes sense. Also, I've been watching these so quickly in succession that it really feels like a 36 episode season to me more than it feels like two separate seasons. So maybe on my rewatch, I could have a better distinction of which one I preferred more. But season 2 absolutely blew up in the world building for me. And especially as somebody who loves that and loves to like dig in and theorize, this gave me much more to sink my teeth into. So for that reason, I think I enjoyed it more. But again, not ready to make that, full on distinction. But yeah, if you saw my season 1 video, that's I finally asked like, is this a type of series that's going to be grand in scope and we will learn about the world building, or is this going to be more isolated like to this city and this war between the Titans? And now after season 2, like clearly the world is expanding, which excites me. And there's just so many intriguing mysteries going on here. And I want to say that the storytelling has been so tight so far that I've really enjoyed it. And I can definitely see why people, hail this as one of the best pieces of anime or even, television that there is. I'm not ready to say that yet myself, but I can definitely see the bones and structure there for why people say that. Because it's just tight. It's tight storytelling, especially with what I imagine is we have time dilation happening now, and I don't want to jump too far ahead of the gun because that's probably going to be my longest ramble of this entire video, just what the hell is going on with Ymir and the implications of that. But yeah, I'm assuming this story is going to be insane in scope since they introduced freaking time dilation now. But anyways, yeah, really enjoyed season 2. Some fantastic moments. Notably, the introduction of the Beast Titan. That guy is insane. We'll talk a little bit more about him. And then the Reiner and Berthold reveal was crazy. I made a brief video when I was in the middle of watching season 2, so some of you might have already seen that and seen me talk about it very briefly. But I thought that was such a cool way to do that. Such a subtle and, almost out of focus reveal for such a pivotal moment. Such a cool choice there. I'm very interested to see how that was handled in the manga, because in the anime, Eren and Reiner and, they're kind of like in the background of the shot, like to the side. So I'm curious, like if the panel was handled the same way. Again, this is something that I haven't Googled to look at because I don't want to get spoiled at all. And speaking of this, that reveal was one of the things that had been not spoiled for me, but hinted at. And so I had my suspicions about them. Now, what I will say is that, like, I had my suspicions about them because they were doing some suspicious stuff in the story leading up to that. But I don't know if I would have been as keen on picking up on that had there not been some kind of cheeky comments in the watch party of, people wanting to be clever and making a little, comment here or there. Like, I think specifically when the two of them were introduced in season one, somebody said, like, oh, sure, glad they're on our side. And it's like, okay, bro, so they're not on our side. And so then, I was paying very close attention to them and seeing like, okay, yeah, that was pretty suspicious. So I wouldn't say the reveal was ruined for me by any means, especially the way that reveal happened. It was fantastic and completely caught me off guard. And I definitely did not put together that like they specifically were the Colossal Titan and the Armor Titan. So that this is all just an example of why I'm being so cautious and not going to be reading the comments. But loved the reveal at the end of the day. That's the point here. Thought it was fantastic, and I'm just so curious about all of these different factions. And I don't want to jump around too much yet, but Reiner and Bert, like, what exactly are their motivations, right? Speaking of the Beast Titan, are they hand in hand with him? I think that would be the initial assumption, but I'm not ready to say concretely that that's true because the two of them were just so shocked when they saw the Beast Titan as if they didn't know that he was going to be making a move in that way. And that just gives me so many questions as well. Like, is he a part of their town? Are they at least aware of him? And so, like, maybe, gosh, I can already tell I'm going crazy with it because I'm about to ramble to another corner here. But the Beast Titan, okay? Let's just talk about him really quick. All right, don't worry, I didn't Google this. I screen capped this myself from Crunchyroll, but let's talk about this guy. He just shows up and completely blows everything we knew about Titans wide open. Because, I mean, they can have that much hair. Are you kidding me? But no, seriously, that was the dumbest joke. But okay, like he can just fully speak. He is huge, and doesn't know what the modern world is like, which is so confusing, right? Because if he was directly like tied to Reiner and Bert, then he would know some stuff because they've been spies and maybe they haven't had a chance to return home to give any information. And specifically, we know that they haven't been home because they want to go home so badly. But you would think that, the fact that if, let's just, again, for the sake of argument, let's say he is their leader, right? If he is the one that sent them on this infiltration mission, then I think he would have to know about ODM gear and the fact that humanity knows to attack the back of the neck. Both things he was surprised to find out whenever he first was introduced. He's like, oh, you figured out we're in the neck, and oh, you've developed this cool gear. Like, so that makes me think he isn't directly tied to Reiner and Bert. And if that's the case, what's going on? And what I think from this shot is that he has blonde hair, which makes me makes me think that he's part of the royal family, like the same one that Christa, aka Historia, is a part of, and is super super important because of that. And that might be why Reiner and Bert were so shocked. Like, maybe like this dude was kind of out doing his own thing and now he's just showed back up for the first time and they're like, oh my god, it's him. I don't know, maybe he's just the leader and they have very poor communication skills, so he doesn't know anything about the modern world. But I'm feeling pretty good about my insight that this is one of the royal dudes, because that would help explain why Krista is so important, because like maybe their titans are more important, which or more developed, or whatever the case may be, because he's got all the hair and the speech and everything else, right? So anyways, all that to say is that I can't really tell how many different factions we're dealing with here. Are he and Reiner and Bert all on the same team, or are they a representative of two different outside the walls teams that have their own motivations? For now, for simplicity's sake, I have to think they're aligned, but for whatever reason, this dude's been out doing something else and is out of the loop. And putting aside how exactly Reiner and Bert and Blondie Beast are connected, I'm just curious, like, what exactly are their aims here? Because Reiner says something really interesting in this scene that he says, hey, like, we were meant to break down the walls and destroy all of humanity, but now we don't have to do that, Eren, if you just come with us. So, why is that the case? Like, why is Eren a suitable exchange for now they no longer have to tear down the walls? I think an obvious leap to make there is because of the coordinate, which we find out at the end of the season, which allows Eren to exert some control over other Titans, similar to the Beast Titan guy. But I don't know if Reiner knew that at this point. But I don't know if he didn't. Like, I don't have enough information, I think, to say for sure whether or not he knew. Because, like, if Reiner knew Eren had the coordinate, then I can make sense of this, because that would be Eren is like such a valuable piece for whatever their plans are that they can just use that instead of destroying humanity like their initial plans. But if he didn't know Eren had the coordinate at this point, I don't know why Eren would be important enough. So again, it seems like the really easy conclusion there is, well, Reiner knew. But at the end of the season, it just feels like he didn't know, because he says, like, when he sees Eren do that, he's like shocked and says, man, out of everyone that possibly could have gotten the coordinate, why did it have to be you, Eren? And I don't know. I really don't know whether or not that, like, that I should take from that he was finding out in the moment, or if that was just we only had that dialogue then because we, the audience, were finding out in that moment. So this was like the only real time that the author could express Reiner's thoughts in that way. So I don't know. And also, Ymir, who was going back and forth on, okay, should I help Reiner and Bert? Should I help Eren and Christa in humanity? She was going back and forth. Well, after she found out that Eren had the coordinate, she was like, oh, now humanity in the walls isn't doomed necessarily. So she certainly didn't know. And again, that makes me wonder, like, why was humanity doomed previously, and why does Eren having the coordinate necessarily mean that that doesn't have to happen? And again, the easy assumption there is to say, well, now Eren is a very powerful weapon that is fighting for humanity, so maybe they have a chance, and maybe that's what she meant. But again, with how complex this story has been so far, I don't know if those, like, initial obvious assumptions are correct necessarily. So yeah, I'm just curious, like, what is it they want? Previously I was thinking revenge. We talked about the, if this was representative of the working class rebellion type of thing, but I don't really feel like that's the case anymore, especially if Reiner was like, hey, we don't have to destroy the city anymore. So, like, whatever they want to do doesn't have anything to do with the walled city. Like, are they just trying to do something else? Just very, very curious. Also, in our season 1 video, we talked a lot about how this story is just showcasing how much war is hell, and I thought that was continued beautifully in this season, especially with the depiction of these child soldiers, these radicalized terrorists, at least from the viewpoint of people within the city. Like, just how real and heartbreaking this depiction is, because I mean, again, they are radicalized terrorist soldiers, right? But, like, they're just kids. I mean, we even see them 5 years prior when Ymir's Titan eats one of their friends, and they're horrified. And what's really interesting to me about that is that at least as recent as 5 years ago, they weren't wrapped up in all of this, because they seemed to be very shocked when they saw Ymir do that. And if they had been the Armored Titan and the Colossal Titan at that point, they would have just transformed and destroyed her, right? So to me, that means they weren't Titans then, which means they've only recently been, like, enlisted and radicalized and given this mission for what I'm sure they've been told is the good of humanity from their side's perspective, right? And I'm not taking any sides yet. Like, if anything, I probably think the people within the walls are the messed up ones doing some crazy stuff. But, there's no right and wrong, black and white in war, right? It's all gray. So, they're just doing the best they can with the information they've got, and it's tragic. And the way they, like, showcase that emotion and that struggle in those final episodes with, everyone from the scout corps, like, launching on, being like, hey, what's going on? Did y'all really do this? Your murderers, like, la 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 la, right? It's just, it's compelling, it's gripping. But yeah, I want to know what they know, and why, like, prior to 5 years ago, did they know about the walled city and about ODM gear and stuff? Like, maybe just everyone was completely ignorant and they were just given this mission to go find out what was going on and to knock down the wall. And I don't know, like, it's just such an interesting mystery. And speaking of interesting mysteries, let's talk about the implications of just what the hell is going on with Ymir, because this is the big one. This is the one that just blew everything wide open. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got time dilation now, and that just offers so many insane possibilities. Like, I think Beast Titan guy could potentially be time dilated, and that could explain why he doesn't know anything, and maybe that's why Reiner and Bert were so surprised to see him again. I don't know. We're not going to talk about him for now. That was just a random aside. Ymir, we know that Ymir is a grandma. Okay, she was wandering around outside the walls as a Titan for 60 some odd years, she tells us. So after she was kicked off the wall in this moment, she went and was mindless, I assume, in that form for 60 years. Then, roughly 5 years ago from the current events, wanders toward the city where Reiner and Bert are stationed, eats one of their friends, and shortly thereafter, like, regains her, I don't want to say consciousness necessarily, but regains her agency, demorphs from the Titan and starts a new life within the walls. And then that leads us to where we are today. What, man? Okay, like, so much stuff to unpack here. First and foremost, I don't know if we got an exact time frame of when this scene took place. I'm going to just say 60 years ago, since that's how long she was wandering as a Titan. So 60 years ago, within the wall, there was a hidden secret religious cult. Now, Ymir is recruited as an orphan off the streets by some dudes. And since it's my first time watching, I don't even remember who those dudes were that recruited her. So if I'm supposed to know anything about those dudes, I missed it. So to me, they're random dudes. But so they recruit her, and then I guess give her to this cult. Maybe the people that recruited her are even a part of the cult themselves, but they position her as part of the royal bloodline, give her the name Ymir. Now, I'm assuming that this is the very same bloodline that Christa is a part of. So she was basically pretending to be, not Christa, but pretending to be one of that family. And this religious cult 60 years ago super worshipped that family. Again, I don't want to draw too many lines that I'm unsure of, but if Blondie Beast Titan is a member of that family and Christa is a member of that family, based on their importance, they obviously have some crazy role within the Titan, the outside the walls Titan people. And anyway, I'm already going crazy. So within the walls, we've got this crazy religious sect. They worship her, but then they get busted, right? Which means that within the walls 60 years ago, this was heresy. It was outlawed, which makes me think that at some point prior to 60 years ago, there was some sort of civil war or some sort of rift between humans, Titan humans and normal humans. I don't know. Maybe that's not a fair assumption to make, but at least some sort of rift between two different sects of humanity. And this one had to go into hiding, which is why they were doing all of their worship in secret. And maybe they were hoping that Ymir would save them and liberate them from the confines of this oppression. I don't know. But in any case, they're discovered. Ymir lies and, says she really is this goddess. And then they all get kicked off the wall, banished from the city. And we know that Ymir turns into a Titan, and I'm pretty sure that this chick turned into a Titan too. We don't actually see it, but we hear, like, the sound effects of somebody turning into a Titan. So that makes me think that every member of that religious cult was a Titan, or at least just she was. So, either she's somebody important within that religious cult, or they all are. But to me, it would make sense that they all were, and as all Titans are humans, which was my assumption previously, but now we have some pretty concrete evidence for that. And y'all, I have no idea if my train of thought is coherently making it through this ramble, so I apologize. But that brings us to the Ilse's notebook stuff. where this Titan thinks that this is Ymir, and it does look a lot like Ymir. So that triggers something for him, and he is like able to remember and even speak, and he's like, Ymir, and he starts worshiping her and bowing down to her, right? But then she starts trying to ask him some questions about this, and he starts freaking out. Like he starts ripping off his face as he like can't answer. And I think this all just tracks with what we know, because clearly he's a member of that religious sect, right? Which means probably all of those people were Titans and not just the important ones. And he worshipped Ymir, and so thinking he sees her again, he's trying to worship her. But when she asks him the questions, he freaks out because he's not allowed to answer. We know that, or at least I think we know that, because in the modern day, the church guy, the leader of the wall religion, won't answer anyone's questions. He's like, I can't tell you. Like, he clearly knows more about everything that's going on, but he's like, I can't tell you. Even when he was threatened with death, dropped off the wall, like, he would not spill a word. So it must be that they are forbidden from talking about all of this, except to members of the royal family or whatever, because he says, like, there's only one person that we can do this with, and that's Christa, right? So I'm guessing that Ymir, like that's why the contradiction was there. Like, he wasn't allowed to answer, and yet she was asking him questions he wasn't allowed to answer. So I don't know, this is so interesting, right? So again, my assumption at this point would be that all of those people were Titans and were in hiding, I guess. And again, whatever rift happened in humanity between the religious folk and the non-religious folk uh, was a big deal, and that's what ultimately led to now having this certain subsect of humanity that lives outside the walls that I assume want revenge, and the people inside that are trying to keep it all a big secret. Now, what's really interesting to me is the fact that we have this religious guy in the modern day. Pastor Pete here, and I apologize because I don't remember his actual name, but he is the leader of this religious sect in the modern day. He clearly knows a whole bunch more than he's letting on, and it all seems to go very hand in hand with Ymir and the religious sect from 60 years ago. So my confusion comes when 60 years ago that was forbidden and they had to practice in secret, and when they were found out, they were excommunicated. But nearly 60 years later in the modern day, he's out in the open. Like, this is no secret. He is a practicing priest. Like, we even saw them like have a congregation in season 1. So like, they're clearly not in hiding. Everyone knows he's a priest. He's not being banished. So why the difference in the atmosphere around that? It's only been 60 years, so that doesn't seem long enough for it to have just like drifted out of the societal subconscious, or like, oh, maybe it's been so long people don't even remember about that original conflict. But like 60 years is like one generation. So like, it should seemingly still be a thing. So I'm curious if the way they're fronting whatever Pastor Pete is like fronting the religion as, maybe isn't the same thing as 60 years ago, but in actuality it is. And they're kind of like hiding in plain sight, or if it literally is the same thing and just for whatever reason society has changed. So very curious. It does seem to be that most everyone in this story doesn't know what the hell is going on. So maybe that's just the case, and only like very few people, I would imagine, at the top have any awareness. But I don't know. I think clearly these things are connected though. And there are potentially, like, is he a Titan? Is everyone in that religious sect still a Titan? At least they were, right? And this royal family is of vast importance to them. Again, I don't know that Blondie Beast Titan guy is a part of that royal family, but it just seems like the easiest connection to make. So I'm going to assume that for now. I'm going to assume Christa is also very important, but she's not as important as Eren, seemingly. Really, all I can glean at this point is this dude is massively important, potentially a member of that royal family, potentially related to Christa, potentially have more potential with Titans compared to other people, considering he can communicate, control, and grow a lot of hair, right? Eren, also important because he has the coordinate, maybe important for other reasons as well. Whatever this outside the wall faction wants has something to do with needing these people to control the Titans to accomplish something, but whatever that something is seemingly not destroying the walled city. So what do they want? What are they trying to do? There seems to be another puzzle piece here that I don't have yet about just what's going on in this world. And considering we have this religion front and center with this royal family being worshipped, I'm wondering how real like gods are in this world. Like, is this religion true? Like, and is there some like grander like gods deity battle or something happening? Like, I really don't know how big the scope of this show is going to go, but um my biggest question right now is just like, what are their aims? And I can't remember if I mentioned this yet or not, but I also think he could be time dilated the same way that Ymir was. And in case just anybody doesn't know what I mean by that, the fact that Ymir spent 60 years in a Titan and basically didn't age, like she still looks like a teenage girl, right? Maybe this guy is also ancient, right? And is just now re entering the scene. I don't know. It really isn't important at this point, but considering Ymir was, like, there's going to be others. And in Ymir's case, it was only 60 years, right? And I say only because in the 60-year flashback, we still don't have anywhere near all of the answers, right? Because we're thrust in the timeline after this rift between the religious people and everybody else happened. So we have to go even further back to find out what that rift was. What was this conflict that caused all of this? And when you introduce a concept like time dilation, I'm assuming we're going to literally go back and see that via one of the characters around in the present. So I have to assume there are some ancient characters at play here, and I'm just wondering how far back are we actually going to go? It's crazy. It's crazy, but it's so cool and it has me hooked. And then there's something from this scene that I just can't stop thinking about, and it's when Eren is getting choked out by Reiner, and he hears the end of Bert and Ymir's conversation. Where Ymir is basically apologizing for having eaten one of their friends, and she says, I don't even remember. And Bert is like, yeah, that's pretty standard. Like, Eren didn't remember either. And I was like, wait, what? Eren didn't remember what? Like, they were talking about her eating somebody. So was he referencing Eren eating somebody that he doesn't remember? And I think there's two possibilities here. The non-interesting possibility is that Barrett was just referencing the first time Eren became a Titan, like in season 1, and just that he didn't retain his memories from that initial time, which we know because we know when Eren comes out of that, all the guards are staring him down, and he's like, "Wait, what happened? What happened?" So that could be what he means, and that's probably what he means. But considering we have this crazy ass concept of time dilation now, it made me wonder, like, is Eren older than we think he is? And he ate somebody some amount of time ago and doesn't remember. Now, that would be crazy, but I don't think it's the case because, again, Reiner and Bert have only been Titans for some 5 odd years, so they're seemingly not ancient and wouldn't have ancient memories of Eren either. And I shouldn't use the word ancient because I don't necessarily mean it have to be like 100 years ago. It could have been like 10 years ago, right? But anyways, it's probably the first thing and the uninteresting thing that I mentioned, but just for whatever reason that I can't get that out of my head, especially because that information was given to us in such a teasing way because Eren was passing out. Like, it's the last thing I heard. That's so juicy. What is he going to say next? But then we don't get to find out. So I'm torn. I'm assuming it's the non-interesting thing, but I feel like there could be something there. Next, let's talk about Christa, Historia, and this bloodline. Like, why are they so important, right? Is it just religious myth that was crafted around this family, which I presume was ruling at one point, since they're considered royal, right? And maybe that myth or this religion was like propaganda in order to help them sustain power. Like, yes, we are chosen by God, or whatever the case may be, right? Or is there something actually there? Something I mentioned earlier, like, are there actually like true gods and stuff in this world? And this family really does have like special abilities or powers or whatever the case. I think one possibility could be that their blood is what creates Titans. One, that would make sense on literally why the bloodline is so important. But two, would also give us some sort of source for this Titan power. And it would also help explain why everyone in that religious sect was a Titan, because, they had access to the royal blood or whatever the case may be. So I think that would be plausible, but I don't think I have enough information to say for sure. I think it would also help explain why Christa was of importance, but was not as important as Eren, because he has the coordinate and all that jazz, right? So yeah. Plus, everyone loves Christa, so I'm wondering if we're gonna get like a Reiner, Ymir battle to the death for her heart. And then a couple of other things about Christa. First and foremost, I just love the storytelling surrounding her. Christa being kind of the focal point of these very interesting mysteries right now. Again, about this royal family, about the mystery of the Titans in the walls, which we haven't even talked about yet. Hopefully, I remember to do that. And just everything surrounding her, right? We have this very interesting character with a story driven, compelling narrative surrounding her, and that is her identity, right? This girl who was forced to live another life, basically wrestling with what her place in the world is. And Ymir being like kind of the opposite side of that coin, somebody who was also forced to be somebody she's not, and very ironically was forced to be a member of Christa's family. I just love the way that they are building and challenging each other, and I can't wait to see how that affects Christa, because whenever Christa finds out the full truth, like, she's going to have a very tough decision to make, because she's been raised in a world to believing all these things, right? And then she's going to find out she's like the heir to the throne of the outside people. I don't know if that's true, but at least based on my current understanding. So, very curious to see like how she deals with that decision and what direction she's going to go. And the development she's been getting via Ymir makes that even more interesting. So, just very tight storytelling in AOT. But beyond that, citing back to Pastor Pete, whom we talked about earlier, and the whole like, how are they practicing this religion in the modern day when it was banned back in the day? And maybe they're kind of hiding it. Well, we know that they're hiding Christa, right, to protect her. And so that could speak to the fact that maybe they are kind of putting on a mask about what they truly believe. Because if they were just completely out in the open, then why would they need to hide Christa and give her like a false identity, right? But my question then becomes, if you're hiding Christa to protect her, and you find out that she signs up for the military to be part of the Scout Corps, no less, are you not worried? Are you not like, maybe we shouldn't let her do the most dangerous profession in the world? So, maybe they aren't as worried about her, or I don't know. Or maybe could Reiner and Barrett's job also to have been to keep an eye on Christa to some extent? It doesn't super seem to be. Obviously Reiner protected her, but I think that was because of his, dual personality, being a soldier in that moment and being a good guy. But yeah, I don't know. So fascinated by Christa. Can't wait to find out more about just everything that surrounded her living this hidden life at first. Yeah. All right, now let's talk about Eren's dad for a minute. And on the crystal royal blood perhaps being the Titan serum, I think that could make sense. And maybe his dad was experimenting on this stuff down in the basement, and that's what he wants Eren to go look at. I don't know. The dad is one of the more interesting, compelling things right now, because he obviously knew far more than he was letting on. He injected with his son with this, and then we just haven't seen him since. So I'm assuming he's still out there doing something, which means he's probably out beyond the wall. So is he part of Blondie Beastie and Reiner and Bert's crew? Or is he a third independent faction that has his own aims? I don't know. And I'm also curious if not only was this the Titan serum, but was it also the coordinate? Like, is that what he was giving him in this instance? And if so, how did he get it? What is the coordinate? How does that even work, right? Is that what he was experimenting on? A lot of questions there. But this does lead me into another point, which this season we obviously confirmed that Titans were humans, when we had the whole mystery of how did they get in when there was no break in the walls. And we know that Connie's village was turned into Titans. When that happened, the way the town was still so like, it wasn't destroyed. There didn't seem to be chaos. Like all the horses were still in the stables. It doesn't seem to be that whoever did that, and I don't know, is I guess the assumption is it was the Beast Titan who did it. And whoever did it didn't do it in a crazy way. Like it was somebody who had access, went to all the houses and turned them into Titans, however they did that. Or the Beast Titan activated them and they already had Titan genes or whatever. And maybe everyone can be a Titan as long as they're then activated somehow. Anyways, I don't want to get too far away from the point, but I was thinking if that entire village had been infected, for lack of a better word, and not in a way that seemingly caused chaos amongst the streets, then they were presumably already infected and were just activated. And how could they have been infected? Well, a doctor sure as hell has access and is trusted by a village, right? Now, I'm not saying it was literally Eren's dad. Maybe it was, but I don't know how big we're talking, like how far away Connie's village is from Eren's village. So either it was Eren's dad or maybe just another doctor that is also looped in on all of this conspiracy. Like maybe all the doctors were secretly rogue agents. Anyways, I just think that would make sense, like because a doctor would be welcome in. You would let him give you a shot, thinking it was like a vaccination or something. I don't know. And then when the day comes that Beastie Blondie needs you to do something for him, he snaps his fingers or whatever it is and turns all of those people into Titans at the same time. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was just Beastie Blondie walking in town and walking to each house and infecting everybody in that moment and then doing it. But I think this is cool and would make sense. So, yeah, I want to know more about Poppy Eren here and just where he's been, what he's up to, and what's going on in that basement. I think, at least as far as the basement goes, it must be the coordinate because I feel like it just makes too much sense for him to have given his son that and given his son that important job or whatever it is. But whose team is he on? Whose team is he on? To me, it feels more like a third faction rather than fitting squarely with the beliefs of the city people and the beliefs of, whoever Reiner and Barrett work for. But we'll see. And then before I wrap up here, I also did want to mention Sasha's father and his speech that he gave her when she was younger. And I think this is another example of just really tight storytelling. I loved that entire moment, that entire little sequence with Sasha and her rescuing the girl. But her father said some words that I feel like are they encapsulate this entire series, basically talking about how humans who have different ways of life, like he and Sasha live out in the woods and hunt their own meals and, forage their own everything, you get the gist. And Sasha also living that way, but him saying like, hey, when there's not enough land for everybody to do what they do, we got to come together and you got to adjust the way you live in order to live in harmony with other people. And I'm butchering it, but that's the sentiment, right? Basically, like together we're stronger, but that requires sacrifice from everybody to adjust to one another. And I think that is Attack on Titan, right? Because we've got the Titans and the faction they represent and the people within the walls, and they cannot come to live together. They cannot live in harmony because they are not practicing what this guy preaches. And then in another example of the tight writing, we have a perfect example of what he's talking about because we see Sasha come upon this village and find a little girl who is sitting terrified watching her mother be eaten because everyone else in the village just left them behind. They abandoned them because the mom had a bad leg. They were not taking care of each other. They were not living in harmony. And that is when a civilization and a society will collapse, when you can't help each other and look out for those lowest, right? And I think, again, that's just like a microcosm of the entire story being told here. And then I almost forgot, but the Titans in the walls. Now, we didn't really find out anything more about them other than that there's something going on there and Pastor Pete knows, but he's not telling anybody. So, previously when I was rambling all about this religious sect, we talked about if they were all Titans, if the blood is even made from Christa's family and all that stuff. There was some rift between humanity. I think the fact that we have Titans in the walls shows that there were Titan powers on both sides, at least, right? Now, why did this rift happen? Obviously, but why did they create these walls? Like, are the Titans in these walls just simply to protect this side of humanity from the outside the walls Titans, and it's just purely born of that conflict? Or is there something else out there? Is there some other threat out there? And that's why these walls were created. And maybe this even happened before the rift between the religious sect people and the rest of humanity. That I don't know. And I think we would again enter into territory of like, are there really gods in this world? And are there other powers at play here? For now, we don't know. We just know that at some point, some Titans were on the walled people's side. I know this video is crazy long, but even still, I'm sure there's like a million things I'm just completely forgetting to touch on right now. But the last thing I will say is that I hope my glorious King Levi's ankle is healed, because I need him back in action in season 3. All right, y'all, I think that's going to do it for this one. And if you made it this far, just thank you for watching. And even though I'm not going to be reading the comments immediately, I might have a friend like read through them and tell me the stuff that's non-spoilery. So please let me know if you actually enjoy this type of video. I know we're like at like 30, maybe even 40 minutes long of my just, random speculation. So if this is something you guys like, I'll definitely keep doing it for the rest of Attack on Titan as we go. But yeah, just let me know. And yeah. Oh, we will be watching season 3 together, watch party in the Discord, just like I've been doing everything else. I don't have an official time to give you yet, because I made a deal with somebody where I need to watch a few episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3. So I'm going to be doing that first, and then we'll start season 3 of AOT. But if you want to join the Discord. There will be an announcement made there as soon as we figure out when that's going to be. And then I'll probably make a shorter video just announcing the season 3 watch party as well. But join the Discord, join us for season 3. And actually, I still have to watch some of the OVAs as well. And those are just going to be whenever I get time. So again, if you want to watch those with me, join the Discord. I will ping everybody there when I do that, but that will be less of an official watch party. Season 3 probably starting toward the end of this week, or at the latest, the start of next week. But I'm loving this journey so far, and thank you guys for coming on it with me.